Hi, welcome back to Jesus and Joy. I hope everybody had an awesome Christmas and ate lots of good food. I think I'm on my third day of stretchy pants. And so as I was thinking about that, I was thinking about New Year resolutions. I love them. I've always loved them. I love making lists. I love checking things off the list. And a few years ago, I had made a really great list of New Year resolutions. And during my time in prayer with the Lord, I felt like God was like, Joy, those are cool. I didn't ask you to do any of them. And I felt super convicted. I felt like God was like, rip it up, let's try it again. So I ripped that list up and I took those things before the Lord. And I think a lot of times we can have good things, but they're not necessarily God things. And what God has shown me in the last few years is not only are there things that He wants us to start doing or to add to our lives, but I've seen more often than not the last few years, there's things that He's asked me to lay down. So I'm going to share a story with you that's super embarrassing, but it's just real. It's just me. But in times of crisis, I believe that we all have coping mechanisms, things that we run to make us feel better. Mine might be one of the more ridiculous ones out there. But I grew up the oldest of 5 kids in a really frugal home. And so we loved Goodwill and thrift stores. I love Goodwill with all of my heart. And so in times of crisis, that is what I will run to. It's like it releases dopamine when I find a really good deal. And so I could, in serious situations where I am stressed, that's what I will run to. And sometimes it will become even daily. And I knew I had a problem when my aunt had called and she was like, where are you? I hear a bunch of noise in the background. And it's like an hour and a half later. Are you still at Goodwill? Yes, I am still at Goodwill. And just about every time she called, I was at Goodwill. And I realized also a byproduct of that is, I'm running to this to release this dopamine to give me the peace in a season of crisis, but it actually ended up creating more anxiety. I mean, this sounds ridiculous, but if I would not go for 2 or 3 days, I would have anxiety about the deals that I was missing at Goodwill. And I knew the Lord was saying, Joy, think about all the time you're spending at Goodwill instead of taking your mess to me and letting me speak healing over your heart. And so I really felt like the Lord was like, you're banned from Goodwill. You cannot. And I did not listen for a while. You guys, that's embarrassing. It is. It's an embarrassing story. But once I submitted to what the Lord was saying, the byproduct of that was peace, that the Lord is a God of peace. And we need to submit to whatever He's asking us to do or whatever He's asking us to lay down. And I know some of you may be watching that and you're like, cool, you struggle with going to Goodwill. Well, I struggle with this addiction for most of my life, and you have no idea how many times I've tried to get free. And, as I was praying about this, I think I kept hearing that verse from 1 Samuel 15, where God had told Saul to do something. He disobeyed, and he was like, hey, Saul told God, I'm doing this for you though. And God's like, I don't care. And that's where that verse comes from. Obedience is better than sacrifice. And I don't know how many times in my life the Lord has told me to do something and I won't submit to it. But I'm like, I'll do these other 10 really great things for you. And God does not care about 10, 100 good things that I do for Him if I will not obey the thing that He has asked me to do. And I remember a few years ago, I was really having a crisis of faith and struggling because of deep disappointment. And through that disappointment, the enemy began to just speak all these lies. Look, you followed the Lord since you were 5 years old, and look where this has got you. You should just give into this, and, all these different things. And I realized that I was super vulnerable and tempted in these areas I'd never been tempted in before. And thank God for His mercy. I still remember to this day when He spoke to me and He said, Joy, I love you and you love me, and we're not doing this. and he gave me a strategy to walk in freedom. And part of that strategy was honestly accountability. And you speak those things out with your friends that are trusted people and family members that you know are going to go to the throne room for you. And they're going to hold you accountable. And you don't keep those lies in the dark. You bring them in the light. And so as I did that and the other things the Lord asked me to do, thank God he rescued me from making some really terrible choices. And one of the verses that I love, it's Jesus says, if your hand causes you to sin, cut it off. And I know that sounds extreme, but I have followed that in my life. There has been times where I felt like I am tempted or I'm wrestling with something. I share it with accountability partners. I take it from the Lord, and the Lord will always give me a strategy. Joy, this is how you walk in freedom. And so I wanted to share this verse with you as we close today. It's from 1 Corinthians. It's 1 Corinthians 10:13. It says, no temptation has overtaken you except for what is common to mankind. And God is faithful. He will not let you be tempted beyond what you can bear. But when you are tempted, he will also provide a way out so that you can endure it. You guys, that is freedom right there. And no matter what you're facing, I believe that the Lord is calling each one of us to life and life abundantly. And there's a choice that he gives us, and it's not always easy, but I promise you, as you take those things to the Lord, as you submit your life to him, there is peace, there is joy, and there is freedom. So I am praying for all of us that this next year, 2024, it's going to be the best year yet, and that we are going to encounter the love of the Father like never before.